Welcome to the Yakima Rack and Roll trailer installation video. Yakima has two rack and roll trailer options, a 66-inch version and a 78-inch version. This video will display the assembly of Yakima's Rack and Roll 78-inch trailer. The Yakima Rack and Roll trailers are a high-performance, lightweight aluminum trailer with a sleek profile. Start the assembly of the rack and roll trailer by laying out and organizing all of the rack and roll parts. The first part of assembling the rack and roll trailer is attaching the rack and roll frame cross members to the pre-assembled side rails. The trailer has a sticker labeled left on the side rail, the wheel block, and cross members to ensure correct orientation. Start by placing the side rail upside down. Use 8 hex head bolts, 8 lock washers, and 8 flat washers to attach both sides of the cross member to the side rail. Note, hand tighten all hex head bolts to allow enough play to find their holes without crossing the threads. Repeat this on the opposite side. Next, tighten both sides of the hex head bolts using a 16mm wrench to 31 foot-pounds of torque. Once the cross members are attached, installing the wheel block will be the next step. Start by lifting the swing arm to check for play. If the swing arm doesn't stay up by itself, please tighten the bolts until it does. Lightly grease the ends of the swing arm, and with the wheel block's black lever open, slide the wheel block onto the swing arm. Once the wheel block is installed, line up the shock eye hole with the wheel block hole. If the shock eye hole doesn't line up with the wheel block hole, you may have to adjust the shock pin alignment screw on the swing arm. Next, apply grease to the shock pin. Insert the shock pin into the shock first, and then through the wheel block and latch the cotter pin. Installing the wheels is the next step. Decide which side of the wheel you want facing out since they're reversible. Take the large wheel axle bolt and slide on the largest flat washer, then grease the bolt and install it through the wheel hub. Now grease the bolt a second time, lift the wheel, and slide the bolt through the wheel block. Install the remaining flat washer, lock washer, and castle nut, and tighten the castle nut to 57 foot-pounds of torque. Tighten the castle nut until the next hole lines up, and insert the cotter pin, then bend the cotter pin to secure it in place. To complete the wheel assembly, snap on the wheel hubcap, then repeat the same procedure to assemble the opposite shock and wheel assembly. Next, install the license plate bracket to the center rail. Use the 4 small Phillips head screws to fasten the bracket. Once the bracket is installed, assemble the gray light base and the black wire connector, then screw it onto the license plate bracket. To complete the license plate assembly, snap the white light into the gray light base. Note, the gray face of the light faces the rear. The next step is to attach the center rail to the cross members. Lay the center rail onto the cross members and insert the T-bolts into the enlarged slots at the end of the cross members. Next, lay the center rail over the bolts, install the flat washers and 17mm nylock nuts, but only hand tighten the nylock nuts at this point. Before tightening the nylock nuts, use a tape measure to make sure the center rail is centered between the side rails. Measure the rear part of the center rail as well, and finish tightening all 4 nuts to 23 foot-pounds of torque. Now we're ready to install the tongue. Open the black lever on the tongue receiver and lightly grease the end of the tongue. Feed the wiring through the receiver and insert the tongue until it lines up with the end of the receiver. Next, put a small amount of grease on the tongue pin and insert it into the receiver hole and fasten the cotter pin. After completing the insertion of the tongue, go through and connect all of the wiring and make sure the black locking handles on the tongue and in the wheel blocks are clamped and locked. Installing the Yakima Round Bars will be the final step. Slide 4 T-bolts into both side rails and position them just slightly in front of where the rear and front frame crossmembers are located. Next, position the aluminum blocks in between the T-bolts, then place the round bar onto the aluminum blocks and slide the aluminum tower over the round bar. Last but not least, add the flat washers and 17mm nylock nuts by hand. Then use a tape measure to ensure round bar's positioning is equal distance all around. Finish by tightening the nylock nuts to 23 foot-pounds of torque. The Rack and Roll trailer provides easy access to your gear and allows for many gear combinations to be transported. Thank you for watching our Rack and Roll installation video, and if you have any questions, please contact us at 1-800-272-5362 or visit us at rackwarehouse.com, and always remember, we fit your lifestyle.